It's your life.
Well, I prepared a list. I even printed it out, so that's doubly good. Right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, have you seen the Trump action tracker?
I just looked at it today.
Yeah, a UK professor has been logging all of Trump's actions and then categorizing them as anti-democracy or suppressing dissent or going after education. And when you look at it month by month, the actions have been increasing. He's up to something like 1,400 now. What are your first thoughts on that as a trend?
Firstly, I think it's a good idea, because I think something like that independently, that's actually run from outside the US, is quite interesting for somebody to collate that, and it's an academic operation as well. So I think it'll bring some credibility in terms of analysing statistics and various other bits and bobs that are coming along. So I think it's going to be useful. And I posted a link to it on Substack and got some great feedback on it as well. So people are going and having a look and thinking it is useful.
Yeah.
It is very nice to have something that is, I don't want to say when it's someone who doesn't really have an immediate interest in it, if it's outside of the U.S. where it doesn't feel like it's in any way aligned with one party or the other, where it feels more independent, is very nice. I think it brings a lot of credibility to it.
I think it is as well. Yeah.
It's also terrifying to see it from outside.
Yeah, to see it up close and personal.
Once you add numeric value to something, it certainly changes it. But as far as the information there and the way it feels here anyway, for what it's worth, I don't know. I try to be positive. There's that whole Occam's razor thing where they're obviously they're pushing toward, we're running into authoritarianism. You want to have that you do want to have that part of you that says, well, there's a different plan involved. Like, they're just doing this so far so that they can, kind of like they do with the price of gas. They run it up really high and then they reduce it, but it's still 15% higher than it was when it started. But you feel better about it because it's less than it got to. My hope is that some of these things are in play like that we are making things that he is making things so outlandish that a return to normalcy is still more than what started. And then we are able to make a sweeping change in 26. But I don't know.
I love your optimism, mate. Really.
You got to laugh or cry, Martin, I guess.
Yeah. That's right. I've got some real concerns.
Sure.
And I'm just looking at it purely from an objective, pragmatic point of view, from the outside looking in. It messes with my mind so much. That's the problem. I look at it and I think somebody's going to come along and it's all going to have been a bad dream. Sure. But it's not. It's very real. And the thing that terrifies me about Trump is he doesn't just want to win. He wants to humiliate the opposition. That's his, it's like this shutdown thing's going to go on and on and on if we're not careful, because he won't want to concede ground, because he actually believes in his own mind that he's winning, and he'll set fire to the country so as not to lose. And that's what worries me about him.
And the people with him. I don't feel like he's got an administration who will calm or soften or do anything to mitigate it.
No, these people are just sycophants driven by greed. It's as simple as that.
I think we have a situation where we talk a lot about there being this larger sort of plan, and I think at some point there was or is, but we may be in a situation where we have a dog that caught the car, that they've gotten to a certain point. They don't know what to do with it, and they're not qualified or competent enough to govern. And that's, to me, maybe more terrifying than if they knew what the hell they were doing. It's I think Martin is correct. I have a little bit of optimism in that we are essentially an oligarchy at this point. So commerce does have to continue. We're the largest consumer nation,
Correct.
and in order for those people to still make money, we have to be able to consume. And so I hope that they will decide that our purchasing thing is more important than Trump's tantrum.
Here's my, sorry, Charlotte, are you going to jump in?
No.
My real issue and concern in the background is that consumption, Robert, at the moment is being driven by the people at the top.
Sure.
So 49% of the consumption is from the top 10% in terms of earners. So all the evidence is that the people at the bottom are now actually moving into a phase where they're doing groceries on buy now, pay later.
Mm-hmm.
There should be, for me, there should be alarm bells ringing all over the place.
Our unsecured debt, our unsecured default is at a 20-year high at the moment, and so, which is never good. And so when you have people putting groceries on good, that's 2008 stuff. That's
very,
very bad. So
and it's that combination, I think, Robert, between a handful of corporations holding up the stock market and the top 10% doing all the consumption. What happens if that bubble bursts?
Well, I was going to say, how much do you think the AI bubble is propping this all up? Because I've seen a lot of chat around that recently.
I think you get. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Robert. Go for it, because I'll just keep talking. So just stop me.
I have the same problem. I think the AI bubble is part of it. I think the bigger, the broader problem will be the bubble that exists on just artificial. Kind of gets this artificially inflated market at the moment anyway. That's all propped up on tariff inflation. So they'll announce a tariff, then pull it back, and then the market's artificially kind of moving. It's manipulated, and if you have market growth that doesn't have any substance beneath it, right? That's where the bubble comes from. But it's a lot of things. It's a little bit AI. The AI infrastructure, with them wanting to build all this stuff and actually may help a little bit, which is terrifying because I would rather it not be doing that. But the actual fact that there's real estate behind it may soften that bubble, or I guess the opposite of it may structure that bubble a little bit. But the buybacks and the artificial manipulation because of the tariffs is the real problem. So we have this thing right now, and as soon as that catches up with itself, that's where I think we'll see the tumble, because there's banks are only going to go so far with collateralized buying and things against not real value.
And I think it's that, sorry, I think it's that tariff pull through into the actual main street that's going to start really hitting. I know it's hitting consumers now, but it's going to hit them a lot harder soon, and that is going to be another element to add to the Jenga pile, if you like. At some point, something's got to give, and my concern is that what you're going to end up with here is Trump's basically shifting around the deck chairs on the Titanic, but him and his top 10% are going to be on the lifeboats dressed as women and children floating off into the distance, because everybody else is just going to be left. I think if it bursts, I think it's going to make 2008 look like a walk in the park.
Oh, it'll be much worse.
Yeah.
Currently the dollar's down 11%
Yeah.
on the year since January 20th. So the dollar index is down. Global reserves are moving to gold and away from the dollar. We're at 57%, I think, global holdings right now,
Yeah.
which and that's lower than when we took over from the pound. So uh, any sort of movement on a different currency is going to really make an impact. I think it'll be gold for a while, but you might be looking at the euro in the next 5 or 6 years. It's made it's at a point now where it's not if but when. Like it's and so uh, I think going into our largest consumer buying uh, time, which I guess is the same for everybody. But as we move into over the next 6 weeks, I think we really will start to see how this thing's going to shake, and that'll be the most. I think that'll really tell the story of how the economy is going to go through this and what that's going to look like. Because if the spending's down, if the CPI is down going into the middle of November, it's going to be a shit show for
Yeah.
Q4.
The thing is are we going to know the real numbers? That's my concern.
I think you'll get real CPI numbers because those come out of the University of Wisconsin. I think those are university based.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
the jobs numbers. You'll never be able to trust those anymore.
So the inflation numbers as well. It's like the whole thing is.
I think the inflation numbers are good because those are still coming out of the Fed, and as long as Jerome Powell's in there, I think you'll get real inflation numbers. And until he can start firing governors of the Fed, there are some indices that we're not going to be able to trust. The CPI should be good, and GDP should be mostly trustable or reliable. But yeah, a lot of mostly they did kind of walk those numbers up a little bit coming into Q2. So there's some things though you can lie all you want to. You can call it, but people do see the difference in what they're able to spend and what they're bringing home. I mean, you can
that's
lie
it. There is an absolute limit to their lying, which is when most people are seeing it day to day, right? And we've spoken before about this idea of Trump and the administration sort of overplaying their hand, like assuming they have a stronger, or acting as if they have a stronger position than they do, or their policies are stronger than they are. And obviously, fake it till you make it does get you. Well, it gets you the presidency, and it gets you quite a lot of stuff. Apparently,
it's been his entire life, hasn't it? It's been his entire life.
Well, exactly. I'm interested to think when you both think that tipping point's going to come. Like, when are they not able to fake it anymore?
I think there's a difference between them not being able to fake it anymore and them being able to just steamroll the plan anyway, which I think you're getting to a point now. In the 80s with Reagan, they could you could smoke screen the people a little more because everything was televised and it went through 4 media channels and all that. And so you could show the wealth and the stock market increasing and all these people with all this money, and people kind of thought, well, maybe it's just me. The rest of the country's doing great. Maybe it's just me. And you can't do that anymore. Not with social media outlets and people talk, and just the connection that we have to each other. You can't really do that anymore. I think people are aware that they've overplayed their hand, and you can kind of see in the interviews that like Mike Johnson is giving and Stephen Miller, where they are just grasping for anything to stay afloat, and they're
for plenary
plenary authority. Jesus Christ!
He pretended to glitch because he didn't know how to finish the sentence.
That's how you see that's what fascinates me. He understands the media so well because he knew that if he did that he didn't quite bank on what would happen. He thought that would get cut out of the situation because it's what media does. They cut it out as an error, as a technical error. He knew what he was doing, but it didn't work because obviously that's now become the focus. That's become the story. and that's the danger of playing with matches on social media, and that's that's basically what he did in that instant. But he can't hide who he is. He can't help himself.
He is anybody else I think could have said they misspoke. They just
Yeah,
they used that word incorrectly. He's too precise with the way he speaks. He's too um, he, his legalese is too on point. Everything
yeah,
he says is very well directed. So he knows what he said. He just didn't mean to say it.
I think they've been saying that behind the scenes.
yeah.
As they're sort of, we have to assume that we have this kind of power and act as if we have this kind of power, and then it just slipped out.
Yeah.
Saying that is something that they may talk about as far as there may be it's probably gonna be like a legal argument. And so if you're in court, you want to say, oh, we have plenary authority to do this. It's guaranteed in Article 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about that behind the scenes enough that he just said it out loud. So that's the concern. Is like, okay, well, this is their argument. Like now, their argument in court is that they're going to argue plenary authority.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I don't think it flies, but that they think it, or whether they believe it or not, that's what they're going to use.
Well, the methodology all the way through has been they know what they're doing, in the sense of they know that it flies in the face of the law, but yet they understand the court system so well that they can use the fact that the court system takes time to catch up to basically, that's what executive orders, he's using them in a very different way. He's he's not actually. Russell Vought is, so let's forget about the village idiot who's delivering the message.
Sure.
The guys behind the scenes are looking at a 4-year strategy that they've put together over the last 4 years. So this is where Democrats have got a problem, because Republicans are always 3 steps ahead, because they've gamed all these different responses from Democrats in terms of how do we respond to this reaction or that reaction. That's why when you look at social media, what they do is they throw out the most outrageous things, and that is done specifically so that the liberals on social media they rage tweet. They basically go, and that helps them then distribute the talking points, so that they're almost assisting in the message delivery. And it's been a huge problem for a long time, and it happened a lot during the election campaign. They'd throw something out there, and then the liberals would go, oh my god, and it would just propagate, because they were actually helping to provide free messaging for their talking point.
I can't cope with the kind of cognitive dissonance of how, in some ways, they are so clever and so strategic, and it's been so long term, and then in other ways, they are profoundly incompetent. And I can't reconcile it in my head. And it's a bit like Reform in the UK, in that in some ways they're the biggest bunch of idiots I've ever seen given a microphone, and then in other ways they're somehow winning, and I can't reconcile it in my head.
They are very good at corporate loopholes, right? So they've made a career out of understanding how to game a system.
Yeah.
What they don't know is how to govern. They have no idea how government works, and they try to run it like a business.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I've always had with people that say, "Oh, we need a businessman as president." The hell you do. The last thing
exactly.
The last thing you want is a businessman.
Exactly.
In office, because they don't understand governance. They spend they will spend their careers trying to find loopholes for power, and they're used to getting their way. Like Donald Trump is a CEO.
Yeah.
People don't tell him no, and if they do, it's not for very long.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work in government, or it hasn't until now. And so that's where I think that when you talk like the cognitive dissonance is that they know one thing, they're going to do one thing, they don't know how to do the other.
Yeah.
And so they are foolish. the thing that the Democrats have going for them right now is that I do believe that every Republican thought that they would be able to shame them into just signing the CR and opening the government back
Yeah.
up.
That's exactly it.
But the thing that they're up against right now is that, truthfully, if they want to do right by their constituents, is November 1st is a healthcare filing. Like, that's our deadline for
Mhm.
open filing. So most people in the United States will have to file their insurance stuff November 1st. That'll lock in the premiums. And so if they just let it go, then you're looking at December before anything is negotiated. And they're not negotiating anyway, and everybody knows that. Uh, it's too late. It's already done. And so the there's no benefit. They can't go. They can't negotiate after the fact. They have to do it now,
Yeah.
or it or everybody's going to spend 800 or 900. I think my insurance would go up like $1,200 a month.
Jesus.
So,
Well,
you know,
the thing that seems evident to me is that 2 out of 3 of his own supporters are going to be in the same boat.
mhm.
It's going to hurt his own base very hard indeed. And I think here's my hope that, and it's a wing and a prayer, obviously, but what I actually think is that his base is him. He's the guy. I think that if he dropped dead tomorrow, I think the Republicans would really Charlotte.
I think that's a perfectly acceptable response at this point. All right. I didn't say a word.
No, I could just tell. But I think if something happened to him,
Mhm.
then the Republicans are really, really going to struggle, because people say that, oh, it's not about him, and it isn't in a way, because they've had to use him as the delivery mechanism for their vision from the Heritage Foundation, which has been
Sure.
a long held vision for a new societal norm in America, which is,
I think we're on the 9th leadership plan. I think Project 2025 is the 9th
yeah.
iteration of the Heritage Foundation
Because
plan.
it went out back to Reagan, didn't it? When you
Yeah.
look at the
Yeah.
iterations, but the interesting iterations come from 2016,
Yeah.
where you looked at where they first had an opportunity to actually really make it work, in the sense that they had a guy that was sort of a little bit green around the edges, and he didn't understand it himself. So in that sense, they managed to get I think it was about 64% of their objectives into that first term, and that's a hell of a lot of achievement for the Heritage Foundation. And then for him to when Project 2025 came along, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. He'd actually gone through a term where he'd used them to actually build his policy agenda.
I
One of
think
the
that
questions we've had is, what's the end game? What do you feel the end game is?
me.
Yeah, what's the end game?
Over to you.
Well, I'll give you 2 different answers, right? So one of them will be correct. I think the realistic end game is that this is the optimistic end game, is that we cycle. The United States cycles between Republicans and Democrats because Republicans send wealth to the top. They enshrine tax cuts and things like that, and then it puts a lot of stress on the economy, and then Democrats come in and take that stress off the economy. Then
Yeah.
So I think we're at a bit of a crossroads as a nation, where we are moving towards the idea of having a lot more of a leftist viewpoint from a population standpoint.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is a big push to enshrine a lot of things very quickly, uh, because of the expectation of there being a little bit of a leftist swing post Trump. Now, my hope is that the end game is just to enshrine a lot of tax code and laws and to, uh, in some way, consolidate some power so that they can make a lot of moves for the next 4 years. Or, and if they can get, they know they're going to lose midterms, so they can consolidate the executive power away from Congress before 2026. And that's what they're going to try to do. So I think that's the end game. I think there's some amount of idea that there's some ideological desire. Like Trump and them just want money and control and power.
Yeah.
And if because of that, if in order for them to get that, if these religious zealots need to eh, get a bunch of laws passed and education, it's all money. It's private. They use religion to end up privatizing education so that
Yeah.
these and then they use other things to privatize prisons. That's what they're going to use this ICE thing for, so that they can build these private prisons. It's all to privatize everything we have, and then they sell it as capitalism versus socialism, and it's that I think is the end game. Privatize as much as they can the healthcare system, Social Security. That's the end game. I don't think that it is uh, a Nazi-esque, crisp uniforms and crazy salutes. Like, I think it is what de Tocqueville warned us about. It's authoritarianism by committee. It is this group of 7 or 8 oligarchs at the top that are controlling the executive, and then making a bunch. It's the Heritage Foundation. That's what de Tocqueville told us to watch out for. A little soft despotism in the form of Christian nationalism. So I think if you read de Tocqueville's response to his 1890 visit, and what he said was going to happen, that's your end game. I mean, it's almost spot on. Um, so it, it's
I think,
terrifying. I
yeah,
think
I think
it's
the thing is, there's a lot of desperation out there, Charlotte.
Mm.
I can feel it. I can sense it in, if I write about something on some, you can feel the tension in in the comments. You can feel the despair and the sort of, and that plays into what you were talking about in terms of your project, Charlotte. Really,
I mean, my letters at the moment are really dark. Yeah, people are in a really dark place. One lady wrote to me the other day talking about the fact that her husband, who's a veteran, has already decided that he's staying to fight, i.e., he's signing up to a militia, and his plan is to fight for the America that he believes in. And she's basically preparing to leave with their son without him.
yeah.
And I was just like, and I'm sure that that's a conversation that's being echoed in a lot of places.
And people would think of that as being a ludicrous statement in itself. If we particularly from outside the US, because we don't look at that militia situation. Although I'd actually go and join the militia to get rid of Farage because he drives me insane. But what makes me not angry, but you feel helpless as somebody from the outside, passing commentary. I always end up sort of checking myself, because I don't, I see some very dark things when I sort of examine the landscape, but I try really hard to try and frame those in a way that that encourages, as well as warns people of what I fear may be lying ahead.
I mean, the statement from the Chicago mayor today, I mean, things are really heating up, right?
Mm.
that's the I think that's the scariest part. I think that's where the despair and the worry from people is that these they're more than attempts. These sending people don't like to see. I know that there's a lot of people that are cheering this that will say, "Oh, we want them in the streets and whatever." Those are people that are not dealing with having troops in their streets. Those are people
Yeah,
in small towns in Georgia and shit that
yeah,
have no idea what that really looks like.
yeah,
And they have this skewed concept of what it's like in Chicago or what it's like in Portland because they've never been anywhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They just sit there. And so those are that loud minority that is just they're just inundated. But there's a lot of fear from people that are in those cities or that do understand the implications of having uniformed people. Your own troops in the what looks to be fighting against you is not a an America that most people want to live in. I mean, that's
No,
not what we signed up for. I mean,
no.
to
But
use a
also, there's also that element, Robert, that these National Guards that have been put in these democratic cities, because that's what they are. Let's face it, they're
sure.
not Republican cities. They're coming from Texas and where there will be a right-leaning
Hmm.
influence on those National Guards, and I don't know the American military well enough to know how sympathetic they are to what Trump's doing. I really don't have that knowledge to be able to comment on that. But when you look at the way some of these National Guards are actually operating, it's pretty heavy-handed, you know. And I know that that's there's this mixture of effectively Trump's private army, which is ICE, that
Yeah.
and they are getting really, really, aggressive. And I can't conceive as somebody that lives in the UK of a police or somebody in authority, be it border force or police or even anybody in that would wear a mask or would be allowed to wear a mask and not provide ID and a number
Sure.
for accountability purposes. It's just something that is totally alien to me. So
But
I
in
find
theory,
it,
it's alien in the US, right? Like this is new.
Oh
The idea
God,
that
this
you're
is not the thing that makes me the maddest about it. That I don't understand why people don't see this. The deportation numbers are not drastically different
no,
than they
they're
were
not.
under Biden or Obama, either one.
No,
And look, I disagree with a lot of what Obama with some of the Obama era deportation practices, but the numbers aren't drastically different, and we didn't have masked uh, s- federal agents ripping people off the streets and terrorizing neighborhoods. So to get the same result out of using those tactics just seems absurd. And also the idea that we've spent $150 billion to do
correct,
it.
correct.
So if we're the party, if y'all are the party of fiscal conservancy, you've missed the mark.
Yeah,
Uh,
and also there's this thing about they can't find enough of these criminals, so therefore they're going after the rest. So that's why they're standing outside immigration courts, because that's low hanging fruit,
well,
and
I would also say that I think that there are a lot of untrained people
yeah,
that have signed up. I mean, if you,
yeah, yeah,
and they're offering you get $50,000 to sign on. It's not
yeah.
nothing. I
is
mean,
that
it's
real? Is that real money? That's not Trump coin or whatever.
yeah,
Like
that's a
real money that's
check.
getting paid into someone's bank
No,
account.
that's real.
I think it's I think it's paid off over like 90
Yeah.
days. I mean, it's not um
I
but
just how are they affording that?
they sent $150 billion over there. uh,
Yeah, let's appropriate some money to it.
Someone
it's
in the comments has said it's distributed over 3 years.
is it
Still
3 years?
though,
Uh,
yeah, that's
uh,
over 15,000 a year. That's chunky.
it's not nothing. Um, so that um, yeah, they're not going into they're not going after these violent ultra violent gang areas, and if they
You
were,
might shoot them.
if they were,
They're beating
that
women.
would be the headline. That would be the cameras that,
Yeah,
they would have on them. So they're not getting these people because they're afraid of them,
yeah, yeah,
because they will
yeah.
They're
um,
tying women and children in the middle of the night and trucking them into unmarked vans.
Yeah. Well,
that's
that's that it's this thing about soft targets and pick your victim carefully. That it's that kind of situation. But the problem with that is with every policy, what people often overlook is there are people at the other end. There are families at the other end that are suffering immensely as a result of, for me, nothing but spitefulness. It's just horrid. It's horrid from every angle. It's terrible. And when you've got Mike Johnson standing on in front of the camera saying, we want to give Chuck Schumer wants to give, healthcare to illegal aliens. It's this classic thing. It's not true. We know it's not true. But the point is that it's all about this dominating the narrative. I didn't see Mike Johnson come on and say, "Oh, by the way, these people pay $90 billion in taxes into the system that props up Medicare and Medicaid. There's no, and they get nothing out. Well, they want to be out now. So, is it not time that they had some?
so there's an EMTALA law that says everybody gets, you
Yeah.
go to the emergency room, that they treat everybody that comes in. You can't ask any question, like you just have to, which is a pretty I mean, that should be the bare minimum of
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a basic human decency.
I've got this
Uh,
vision of it being like a Monty Python sketch because, every day a lorry
yeah,
goes past the emergency room and you bring out your dead immigrants that you've allowed
yeah.
to die in the emergency room. What on earth are they supposed to do?
Well, I think when you paint it to a point that, and the hospital foots the bill for that. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that the government is paying for
yeah.
these people. It's just the way they frame the conversation
Mm.
that that is so dangerous, and it is dangerous
Yeah,
because
it is dangerous. Yeah,
now uh, you've empowered a bunch of people that think that they understand the narrative. They have no idea,
yeah.
and all you want to do is get your buddies that are extremely wealthy a few more $1,000 as a tax break on a thing. Come on now, like
Yeah.
we talk about overplaying your hand. Like you stretch that hand to a point that it's um you're not just lying anymore, but you're being malicious and careless intentionally. And
You know, though, that's why this conversation works, Robert, because we're on the outside looking in and you're on the inside looking out. And it's really interesting to have a conversation across those boundaries because for me, I'm sort of immersed in American politics every day. I understand what's going on. I get into, but it's not like having the conversation that we're having now, where we can throw ideas across the table and say, am I viewing this wrong? Or and that's why I think this format works, Charlotte.
I agree with you 100%. It's sometimes we get kind of lost in our own thing. We forget that there are other people that this affects. I mean, this affects everybody.
Yeah,
Now it so that perspective and that sort of not necessarily unbiased, but uncompromised voice that says that these are the facts. This is what we're looking at.
yeah.
This is uh, it, it's unmanipulated by
Yeah.
party politics. That's the thing we run into in the United States is it's all party
But
politics.
it's interesting when you're actually commentating on it because I've always said from the outset, I have a liberal mindset. My values are liberal values. So I'm not going to make any apology for that.
Yeah.
You know, so you're never going to come and read what I write and think it's not biased to my value set. But what it will, or what I really, really, really try hard to do, is to be fair, to look at the opposite side of the argument and give credit where credit's due, you know, in order to make the points that you need to make. And I think it's a tremendously difficult thing to do. You know, I'm not the guy that's going to give you, in inverted commas, balance, as is so often said. You know, I'm not the guy that would allow Adolf Hitler to make
even is balance in this context, because what media seems to think is that's giving fair and equal airtime to positions that are not equivalent.
Yeah, that's where the problem comes.
It's okay to hog tie women and children and chuck them into the back of trucks. That isn't a morally defensible position. That's not politics.
Yeah.
That's something else entirely.
Yeah.
And I think what's kind of interesting about having us Brits commentating on this in this way is I think sometimes it allows people to acknowledge that what's happening isn't normal and it isn't right. Because their communities are saying, oh, it's fine, you know, it's fine, this is normal. And they're like, is it? Is it? And they sort of doubt themselves. And then someone from the outside said, this is not normal. This is not normal at all.
Yeah.
And it allows them to actually be like, actually, yeah, that isn't normal at all.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
There's this idea for some reason that that there's a respectable counter to the left's ideals at this point. And I think if you had a more traditional idea of conservatism and a more traditional idea of liberalism, where you were saying we're all fighting for the same things, we just have different ideas about how to get there. But that's not what we're dealing with anymore. That's not even remotely what we're dealing with. You're talking about American conservatism is completely wrapped up in identity politics and culture wars.
Yeah.
And so it has nothing to do with governance or economics. It is if you have a net worth of less than $6 million US, U.S. conservatism does not benefit you. Not one little bit. If you're using it for the moral ground or the ethic or what you think is some sort of moral standard of not abortion and marriage between a man and whatever that nonsense is, if that's then just do those. Just be whatever your religious moral beliefs are. Just do those things.
Just don't have abortions and marry someone.
Don't have abortions and don't get gay married, and you will be fine. I promise you. Don't go to a drag show if you don't want to go to a drag show. But this idea that that there is some sort of ethical counterpoint, or that we're on the same level, is completely absurd at this point. It's there's no benefit. You're going to get the Republicans put in that bill. They put there's going to be no tax on tips and no tax on overtimes up to $12,000, and it's a tax deduction at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Well, that means that every person that gets cash tips has to claim those tips now, and then it's
deliberate. Let's not move away from the fact that these are deliberately manipulative policies designed to placate, because you can then look at that bill and say, oh, that bill does exist. There is a no tax on tips bill, and there is a no tax on overtimes bill. But it's designed specifically, you know, it's going to be gone in 27 anyway. And, you know, it's this thing about how can we paint a picture that is based on a grain of truth wrapped in a shit stack of lies. That's exactly
it's
how
like
the system works.
T's and C's on a crummy loan or something, right? Where like you've got to read through the fine print to find out that you're literally never going to pay it off. It's as you say, it's buried on
that you borrowed $100 and now you owe $3,000.
Exactly.
The shitty part is, sorry for my language, is that it's not even fine print. It's just right fucking there. Like if they were just, it's right there in there.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody bothers to
I'm glad you
actually.
said fuck first.
So it was bound to be one of us.
Yeah, if you're on the call with two Brits, then I'm afraid an F-bomb is being dropped at some point.
Look, I want to be honest with you. We've been on here for 57 minutes, and I'm surprised it took me that long. It's not even hidden. It's just right there. All you have to do is read the language. The expiration dates are right there. Um, all the qualifications are right there. But nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to say they read the bill because they heard Fox News tell them the high points, or they heard whoever.
I mean, a lot of these Republicans voted for that big bill. Hardly any of them read it. They're even surprised. They're even surprised after the event to be told that this is now going to affect your constituents. Yeah. They just blindly.
If not with that shit at my job, I'd get fired. Why do we allow politicians to just not do the job they're elected to do and paid to do? Like, why is that allowed?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that a lot of the problem is most people in the United States, most of your active voters, are concerned less with the governing that's going on and more with the results. And they don't have, and I don't mean to paint a picture of people that are not involved, but a lot of people don't have time to be as involved as we get to be super involved. Like, this is what we do. Like, I get to, I spend 16 hours a day involved in politics for the most part. I mean, most people don't get that. They get 30 minutes or an hour of news a day, and they're not going to research it. They're not going to spend the rest of their time going through this stuff. And
the thing is, though, Robert, I'm just going to make this point before you continue that bit, because I think this is important. Is that it's this thing about how corporate media is being castrated. Mm-hmm. Corporate media has been castrated. So you've got this control element that's now runs across corporate media, who dare not say the wrong thing for fear of being sued for millions, and a social media landscape that is totally now controlled by the right. Mm-hmm. Now, whether we like it or not, when it comes to elections, I said, when I was had conversations with people during the 24 campaign, that what will happen is that what Musk can do with X is turn down. He can adjust the flow of how the various conversations take place, so he can prioritize what gets lifted and what doesn't. And the problem is that a lot of liberal voices on that particular platform have what I define as follower anxiety. The whole thing's based about how many people is following. That is their thing. It's not about what they're saying. It's about how many people are listening to what they're saying. But if you've got 250,000 followers on Twitter, as I still like to call it, then there's probably a few thousand. There's not that 250,000 aren't your audience. It's a fraction of that.
Well, that's the I think that's the scarier. That's the scarier idea, is how much of it's controlled. Yeah. We hate to say we have state controlled media, because we don't have state controlled media, but we have corporate controlled media that is effectively controlled by the state. And so every time they rewrite the rules in the FCC to allow for Sinclair to buy more stations or to merge with it, those are the monopoly and antitrust laws exist for a reason. And it used to say you could only own a certain number of stations. And every time we rewrite those rules to effectively let someone else buy, to expand these companies, we're just giving up control. But nobody's paying attention to that. That's not the thing anybody cares about.
Yeah.
But that's the part that's eroding our news coverage. I think there was a time when you could trust Dan Rather to give you pretty straight news at the end of the day, and you could take it to the bank.
Yeah.
And now I mean, Sinclair's going to write the scripts that even your local stations are giving
Yeah.
you, and that's what they're going to parrot, and that's what you're going to get.
Has
And
it
so,
shocked you how quickly everybody's fallen in line? Like educational institutions, the media. Has that been a surprise? Because it's felt surprising to me, but I'm not involved in it in the way that you have been.
there are certain things that surprise me and some things that don't. Um, I was surprised that I was surprised at the Ivy Leagues giving in the way they did. Gosh, when Columbia just belly up, like, and I don't know why I had this higher expectation of I guess because they give out the Pulitzer, and I thought that they had a little more integrity than that. And I understand that it's either we get our $4 billion or we pay 116 million. Like, I understand it's a business decision, um,
Oh.
but it's the optics. It's what you've done. It's what you've said that you will allow and what you'll accept from from this administration. That was very surprising. The education part. I'm not surprised with the governors that have gotten in line. Um, I don't understand though some of the Congress people, like the fact that we have two Republican uh, people in Congress that I think are doing more than any of the Democrats at the moment. And I never thought that I would say Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing more work than,
Yeah.
but uh, I also have this theory that she is learning about government
Yeah. Yeah.
as she's
Yeah.
going through this,
Yeah.
and so now she's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to think. I think she's learning
She's
as she goes.
yeah.
Next year, she's
She's
going to be a
yeah.
Democrat. I believe it.
She's smarter than what people give her credit for. She can actually see the long game here, and I think she realizes that it, they're not gonna. She's not inside the tent in terms of the chosen circle. So therefore, she can afford to actually, you know, say the kind of stuff that she's saying now, without real without
Please,
fear in some
please
respect.
don't quote me on this. I don't want anybody to remember that I said what I'm about to say. Um, I think that when Marjorie Taylor Greene came on the scene, I think that she believed and had conviction about the stuff that she said. I think that she truly believed it. I think she still has conviction today about the things that she says. Uh, I think when I said I think she's learning, I think that she is truly trying to educate herself on how the governance part of this works. Now, I disagree with her a lot about most of the things,
Everything,
but
but not recently.
Someone in the comments said she did say Jewish space lasers.
She
so
did.
we need to remind ourselves of that.
he
Let's
did
not
say
forget.
that.
Let's not forget. Let's not. You know. Let's not.
I'm
Let's
not saying
not
she's a
anoint
good
her.
person.
You know, I'm
Please
not
don't
gonna.
mistake.
You know, I'm not gonna sort of intellectually beatify her. Really.
But I do think that there is. I think that we ask a lot of our lawmakers, and I think that we demand things from them. And I think that when we say like, if you're a lawmaker, you should stand up for your constituents, and you should call us. You know, you should call out your party when they fuck up. And I think that if someone does that, whether you agree with them or not, when they do the thing that they're supposed to do, I think you should also acknowledge that. And so I do think that she is making a step that a lot of Democrats aren't making. She is, and I've all Thomas Massey. You can disagree with his politics, but the man has integrity. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's got conviction about what he believes.
I think it's this thing about this line. You know, there's a line there, and Democrats sit on one side and Republicans sit on another, and never the twain shall meet in the eyes of the base on each side. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, you know, during the Biden administration, you couldn't criticize Biden, you know, because you'd be blackballed. You know,
Yeah.
you would be ostracized for saying if he didn't toe the Democratic line. One thing I've learned about being able to write as opposed to post is I can't explain the sort of the liberation that it brings in terms of thinking put aside everything else and just write what you feel. You know, and I know that I get pushback from people because particularly, you know, Democrats get upset with me sometimes because I'm highly critical of the way that they've managed this situation. And the argument always is, you know, well, it's easy to criticize, and it's easy, you know, retrospect this, and, you know, on reflection you can say this and you can say that. You know, nobody, and I would argue to anybody, nobody could say that I didn't toe the line for the Biden administration. I created over 200 political ads in support of what Biden was attempting to achieve. And I think I've earned the right to be able to look at it with a critical eye and say mistakes were made. You know, the biggest mistake in my mind is that they went after, they basically abandoned the working class Democrats in pursuit of middle class Democrats. And what happened is that Trump scooped them up, because they were the people that weren't feeling what the Democrats were telling them they should feel in terms of the economy. The Democrats were saying the economy is doing great, but they were sat there not able to put food on the table for the kids.
Sure.
And that for me was a huge error. And, you know, we'll talk about Gaza, but if you look at that element of it, he scooped up working class voters that he should never have been able to get anywhere near.
The problem with what, and I've got a whole thing about, I hate the idea that we identify as a Democrat, or but those are just political parties, and like you can say I associate with a Democrat, but I hate when people are like, I'm a Democrat, and I will defend to the death a Democratic. Like, why? They're just people, and people are bound to fail and to run afoul. And if you wouldn't, if you had a minister that had that was arrested as a pedophile, you wouldn't you shouldn't defend that person just because they're a member of the same club you are. It's just crazy. So I think that it's important to criticize our leaders, especially if they're in our own party. And I think that Biden should have done more to, he should have gone harder against the corporations and stuff that would have allowed prices to come down faster. I know that's not popular, especially with wealthy corporations, but you know, those things could have been done, should have been done, but they weren't. And much to your point, he abandoned some of the people he shouldn't have.
But the reality is that when Trump took office, by almost every economic benchmark globally, the American economy was the best, strongest economy in the world.
It was hands down the strongest economy. The Economist said that we were the envy. Our economy was the envy of the world. At our peak, we had 9.2% inflation, which is,
you were
I
lucky.
don't think
We had 12.7.
Right. I think the world average was 11.2, something like that. You know, there's an American misconception that anywhere else in the world exists. I think that there are times where people think that our economy is the only one that matters and everybody else is a result of ours, and it's that American arrogance or exceptionalism, that consumes us. And they think, oh, not when the Republicans come and say, oh, the economy's terrible. It is. You know, every KPI that gives us our economic health was fine by the numbers. Biden had a very successful presidency.
Correct.
And but people don't look at that. Nobody knows what the hell geopolitics even means. They just they have their blinders on, and they listen to Mike Johnson tell them what the hell's going on, and that's
Charlotte.
Well, I was just going to say, so what's the version of the Democrats that needs to happen to help pull you guys out of this? Like, what do they need to be doing? Well, I mean, they're not doing a whole lot. But what do they need to be doing differently?
I tell you what I find interesting, Charlotte, and this is a great actual leader point. That have you heard of this guy Graham Plaskett running against Susan Collins in Maine?
Is he a fisherman?
He's the oyster farmer.
He's
Yeah.
an
Oyster
oyster
farmer,
farmer.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Interestingly enough, I wrote a piece today about the fact that he's picking up a lot of media in terms of the straight talking, former Marine veteran, blah, 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 talking progressive values, really. Just straight talking, working man, all that kind of stuff, unions, talking all the right, making all the noises that AOC's been making since 2018. But she's a communist, but he is talking sense. I don't get it.
I can explain that a little bit.
Oh, good.
I think. There's and it doesn't have anything to do with her being a woman or anything. It is if you put a guy in a suit, like in regular work clothes, right, and you're just a guy talking about, it's the way he frames the conversation. He frames it around, we all have the same complaints. The complaint is this, and this is where they're hurting you. This is where we should be, and he does a wonderful job. If you've heard him stomp or any of that, of framing that conversation. And look, I like AOC. I like a lot of her policies. I think she's very sharp. But institutional Democrats have a problem of being a little condescending. Look, I'm as guilty as anyone. I talk down to people sometimes whenever I don't understand why they don't understand what we're talking about. So, I mean, it is a thing. And he has done a great job of framing those conversations.
Yeah.
But he's able to do it because he works with a bunch of MAGA Republicans all day on the docks. And I mean, that's what he said. It's like, I know these guys. I fish with them. I work with them every day.
Yeah.
I know how to talk to them. And so I think that's the difference. I think that he's preaching the same thing that Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing. It's the exact same message.
It's exactly the framing of,
and
but he's able to do it, as you say,
yeah.
because the way he frames the delivery. But I was just making some comments the other days. I'd love to be able to bottle that, because that is the kind of message, and comes back to your point earlier, Robert, about the public, the wider American public is actually receptive to a left-leaning vision in some respects, in the sense that, if you look at what Bernie did when he went out on the oligarchy tour, he actually, he went into red states, he went into the hostile territories, and met with favorable responses, because he didn't frame it about as Democrats versus Republicans. He framed it about the rich versus us, and that has a lot of merit on the stump.
I also think people in the United States don't have much of a concept of what socialism actually looks like what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so we have all these bills that we pay. We pay our health insurance premiums and that. And I think they don't understand that if we talk about Medicare for all or universal health care, it's like you don't have to pay your health insurance anymore. It's instead of paying that premium, you can just pay a little more in taxes, and then it's
and it's a lot less money.
Yeah, or you don't have to pay any more in taxes. Rich people are going to pay a lot more in taxes, and then we all get a little health care. I don't think they understand the concept.
I was just going to correct you, make sure you understood
that. So we're going to have. I just think we have been misled for so long about what these programs and stuff actually look like, that if you tell them, the fire department, the police department, and public schools are all socialist. It's all social programs. It's not Maoism here. Like, that's not what we're talking about. And so I think that's where the message gets lost. As far as what Democrats need to do, much to Martin's point, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff and all of the ones that have no idea of what working class and middle class America are dealing with.
Yeah.
Should take a month and go hang out with Graham Plattner
Yeah.
or anyone else
Absolutely.
that's running.
Absolutely.
And
The what I call Candy Staton Democrats. You know,
yeah,
self-preservation is what's really going on today.
It would. I don't think there's any room for. I think what Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are going to find out very soon is that there's not room for them anymore, and that they are going to have created their own um, obsolescence because they no longer speak for the party that they
You
run.
think that's what's coming, is a massive change in
Yes.
Democrats?
Yeah, so do
young, progressive, relatively young progressive candidates getting elected in, and
If you look at
whole
the
position of the party changing.
the candidate pool right now, for especially people running on the independent or Democratic ticket is 43 and under, like, so really like 28, 25 to 40, which is relatively young in a political sense. That's who's coming, like that. Those are the people that are going to win votes, because you have young people that are very active in politics, and they are going to come out in mass in 2026. I promise you.
So we're going to see millennial politicians out in force, which is interesting.
You're going to see an incredible number of millennial politicians. I think Shoykat Chakrabarty is going to take Nancy Pelosi's seat easily in California. You're going to see that young lady, Kat, I can never say her name correctly. Abu Ghazali in Illinois. You are going to see a large number of young progressives, and coming out of the South, Hallie Schaffner out of Arkansas. There's a young man in Louisiana that I think is going to do well in Mike Johnson's district. Actually, I think he's going to do well. So there are some things that are I think are positive, and so I do think that Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer really need to take stock of their.
I do think there's some merit in, you've got a load of lions there being led by donkeys at the moment. That's the analogy. Because there's some phenomenal talent on the Democratic bench.
Oh, incredibly. AOC is fantastic. Jasmine Crockett, like, there are great leaders there that are, like you said, they're being led by donkeys. And that's where you're taking your leadership cues from, and those are the ones that are telling you what you can and can't do. It's not ever going to let those with big voices that could actually get something done really kind of blossom. So I hope they don't last long, to be perfectly honest. Like, I do, I would like to see that change. I think that's going to be the most important thing that Democrats do.
If there are free and fair elections, I guess, is the caveat. If things haven't been so abused and distorted as to make it very, very, very difficult.
I will say this: when it comes to our midterm elections, they're all state run, and so to have 50 state or 52 state elections that would be compromised would be difficult. And so when people talk, well, there's not going to be elections, there will be elections, and I think there will be good elections.
There are elections in Russia too, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's my concern, Robert, is that there's a difference between an election and a free and fair election.
That's fair.
If you look at the way that they're actually shaping the narrative, and I always said that what they would do is go after the Democratic funding sources and all the mechanisms, all the infrastructure that make it possible for them to be competed against. And that's exactly what they're doing, and that's what they're trying to shape, this narrative of basically of anybody who's not a Trump supporter is a domestic terrorist. That's where they're at the minute.
Well, I don't know I don't think that narrative is going to get very far, and
No,
they're
I don't.
trying it really hard. I don't. There's a
That
lot of
Pam Bondi briefing today was kind of chilling when she was like, "We're going to treat it like the cartels.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
getting rid of them
Yeah.
from top to bottom." Like,
it's
Really? I'll fire missiles on Oregon.
it's
well, yeah, but when they say bottom, they're talking about like ordinary
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
just normal people going about their daily lives.
Yeah.
The dehumanizing language is horrifying.
you can you still have to have a trial by jury. You know what I mean? Like there still has to be I mean, and maybe
Robert,
I'm just
you're getting
too.
mixed up, Robert. You're getting mixed up. There is going to be there's going to be no courts, no
I
laws.
guess so. Yeah. I think that there's a bright spot in that a lot of your a lot of people running, a lot of your candidates, your Democratic candidates, average donation size is very low. So they're raising a lot of money, and they're having, an average like $40 to $100 as a donation average, which means that those funding sources are changing to private. Like people are.
You're right, and that
Yeah.
I think one of the things that jumps out at me and concerns me somewhat is you get a special election that happens, and there's a 16% swing to Democrats in a special election. Then all of a sudden Democrats are saying, "That's it, we've turned the corner, we're off and running." You're not. The point is that is a protest vote against what Trump's doing. And my big problem with it is this lack of vision. The lack of boldness, the lack of vision is where I've got a big problem. Whatever happened to the audacity of hope? That's my thing. If the only reason you're going to win a midterm election is because the other guy lost, what have you got?
But if you think about it, that's sort of what happened in the last election in the UK. Like Labour won by a landslide, not necessarily because they were laying out great vision, but because everyone was really fed up with the Tories, and we've ended up with a Labour government who are like paving the way for fascism.
Correct.
It's horrifying, really.
And that's where the danger comes from. It's this lack of vision and this lack of forward thinking. It's very easy for politicians to sit in these spaces and where have I gone? Oh, I'm there.
Oh, you are.
To sit in these spaces. My camera's gone somewhere. To sit in these spaces and it's following me. Look,
It's going the wrong way. That's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
There we go. No, yes. So they sit and they sort of work out a plan, and it's not a plan that makes any sense because nobody knows what they're doing anymore.
Well, my hope, to your point, I think that the Democrats have spent the last decade having zero vision. Right? They thought Hillary was going to be it, and when she didn't win, they didn't know what to do. They put Biden up, and then Kamala. And I think Kamala was fine. But I don't think there was any thought behind it. I think it's just what they did. I do think, and not to be counterpoint to you, Martin, but I do think that there is some. I think there is some vision in the young progressives that are coming out, because I think they're counter to the current Democratic message, or not counter to it, but they are that they have one. Maybe I guess it'd be they are speaking more to the working class and to the ideals of kind of a democratic socialism and what that should look like, and how we can pay for those things, and how those are reachable realities. It's not pie in the sky where we're going to have free subways. I mean, Mamdani has a plan to get there. I mean, these are all very realistic things that can happen. So I think that there is that little bit of hope. Not at a national level. If I don't know that they're going to come through in 26 and just you know um, flip tables. But I do think that I think that it will show a spark that I think we'll move forward with. Um, Something's got to give because
But what
continuing with
happens
the
between
same
now and
thing.
then? Because that's a year away, isn't it?
I mean,
It's only been 9 months.
um, that's the
Now you're
shitty
saying
part
you're gonna
is
make number
that
12?
uh, you keep tying them up in court. I mean, that's the scary. Let's talk about American history for 2 seconds, real quick.
Go on, go for it.
Uh, when they drafted the Constitution, the idea was that we would have this big government that moves very slowly. Right? That's three branches fighting against each other. It would be inefficient. It would be a drag chain. I used that in an essay yesterday. But that's the idea. Like it would be kind of this monster that would rely on debate and disagreement and conversation. Then we'd arrive at the right answer. Well, they've got all three branches of government, and so things are moving pretty quickly. And so because we don't have elections every year and because we're structuring this midterm kind of thing, you know George Mason said that we should have elections every year and it should cycle, it should be a staggered thing. He was an anti-federalist, but I think that he may be right. I think we need to maybe go to something where we have more regular elections where we don't have this stagnant, because we are looking at next year, next November. And I think our best hope is that some of these Republicans start to realize that they are up for election and that they better fucking get their shit together,
Yeah.
or they're going to be out of job.
Yeah.
And there's only so many jobs that you can get with defense contractors as consultants and lobbyists. Like those are gonna, there's not 435 of them. So like, figure it out. My hope is that they will start putting that together. That, uh, but it's going to take a bunch of people being very, very loud and being in these town halls these guys are going to where they're getting berated and their asses kicked. Is a step in the right direction. But like to your point, there are no elections in the meantime. The special elections are looking good because Democrats are winning those hand over fist. The one in Tennessee 7th District, they just primaried that. That'll go to vote in January. That will be very important. I think that'll be very telling.
But again,
If
they're
you-
gaming the system. I don't believe that Johnson's sworn in the lady
No.
who won recently because he's obviously terrified about the Epstein vote. Again, they're not playing fair at all.
Well, today he
This is
said that,
politics, Charlotte. This is politics.
No, I'm too naive for this.
he's
Really.
getting beat up about it enough that today he said that he would schedule it.
Oh, did
Oh
he?
wow!
So, whether or not he will remains to be seen. But he's going to start looking. Even there's MAGA, and that is one thing. But your regular conservative, just old Republicans, are going to get fed up with they don't really go for the dancing around the questions shit very much. Like that's what they used to say about Democrats is nobody answers any questions. And so they start to get frustrated. And I can speak from like my father is what I would consult. He's not mad. He doesn't like Trump, but he's a traditional conservative. He doesn't like that. He hates it. The old men at the golf course hate that. Like that's not so I think that's going to start to be problematic for them. As you can only do that song and dance so much. Now they may not give a shit and they may just keep doing it anyway. But there will be people that are upset about it. Hopefully,
You sound quite hopeful in a number of these things. It's good that there's an optimism, perhaps, in some of this.
I like to think that I try to look at what's the upside for the people that are doing it. I'm gonna let's take Hitler for example. Right? He was, and I'm not trying to say anything good about the man. I promise you.
Just gonna
Uh,
just
but he was
preface that.
ideologic. He was an ideologue.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He wanted power for the sake of being. For his ideologies moving forward,
Correct.
it wasn't
Correct.
power and money for the sake of power and money.
Correct.
And so his end game was a lot more terrifying because it was more about a global empire, like it was
Yes.
making this thing. And then Goebbels and Himmler were truly psychopaths that took the cruelty. I think Hitler probably would have just sent the Jews to Israel and not have done that. I think he just went along with the thing because it was fine. He didn't care that much. I think he was a terrible person, but I think his ideologies were most important to him. Trump wants money and
Yeah.
stuff, and so I find hope in the fact that they don't want to. There has to be a positive in there that, and their only positives come from them continuing to have a consumer nation, and they
Yeah.
can only buy so much shit. Like
Yeah.
there's only so many yachts they're gonna buy. Eventually we have to start buying T-shirts and stuff. So they need that commerce part of it. So I think maybe some of my hope comes from trying to understand, is there benefit to having a bunch of people that are terrified, afraid, and don't leave their houses? Probably not. Um, is is there benefit to them to scaring the shit out of us so that we get in line? Yes. So that's what I think that is probably the more um, Occam's razor side of it. Like that
Mm.
seems to be the thing that makes the most sense to me. But I've been wrong a lot of times. I gotta be over here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess I'd rather be hopeful until they come
Yeah. Yeah.
kick the door
And
in, as opposed to.
I think you're right, Robert. I think you are right. And there are moments when even I am optimistic. They are rare, but but I can see a way through. But a lot of that is what concerns me. Every single time I can see a way through, I'm looking for a Democrat to help me.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming up short. That's where I'm coming up short, because the Democrats have to be led, and they're not being led at the moment. I absolutely buy into the Republican argument that had it not been for Schumer facing a primary from AOC, that he likely would have voted to keep the government open.
100%. He absolutely would have.
Yeah.
Wouldn't. I mean, um, that is. You will never convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
That's the
I'm
only
glad
reason
we're
we
on the
are in this
same page.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page, because I find myself looking for shadows around every corner, and that's not helpful sometimes.
I think if you're looking to Democratic leadership as it exists now for hope, you are going to come up empty-handed.
Yeah, yeah,
Because one, the APAC money that those guys get. Cory Booker's great for a show if you want to
yeah,
watch
yeah,
somebody holler and stomp their feet a lot, but
yeah,
he's
yeah,
not good on the governance part. And I think it's important that we criticize those people,
yeah, yeah,
and we criticize them loudly, and we criticize them often, because we can do better than that. We can do better than these corporate shills that we put in office. Just
yeah, yeah,
because they run on the Democratic ticket doesn't mean that that's all we get. We should
yeah, yeah,
want better. I say that to Republicans all the time. They're like, well, what was our other option? Like, well, you had a primary and you picked that son of a bitch. So, like, I don't want to hear it. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't your only option. Get
yeah,
involved. Um, and so I say the same thing to Democrats. It's, if you don't want Schumer, demand something else.
yeah,
Demand an independent. You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to just vote for a Democrat.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so I think I think that there will be some help from the Democratic side, but I think it's going to come from an unexpected places. I think it's going to be, um, AOC and Bernie have done, I think, what they can, but I think it's
Yeah,
going to be that glimmer of hope, like of Mandani and his and him really kind of jumping way ahead in polls, and that kind of being something that people hold on to for the next.
What worries me is just how slow this is and how many people are going to be pushed into illness, poverty, homelessness, death, while they figure all this shit out, right? Like the cost of this is so high. Even if there is a democratic route out, which I hope there is, it takes so long. And then even if the right people get into power and they start doing the right things, it will be a decade, right? I can't bear the cost of this. It just feels way too high.
The thing is, yeah, I think you're right, Charlotte. And I think the thing is the Democrats have got to win massive. It's the only way you're going to affect, transformative change, because otherwise what you're going to get is what they did before: circumvent the legislature by using states to go to the Supreme Court eventually with things like they did with Roe v. Wade, etc.
If there's a Democrat majority in both houses, they have to codify things into law. They have to do real governing. They have to do the goddamn job, and that's where we fall short. Everybody wants things to campaign on. Like, well, stop campaigning and start governing. You got the fucking job, now get to work.
Spot on.
And that's where I think these young people are different. They're not looking for a job forever. They're looking to go in there and make changes and make a name for themselves, maybe. But they want to be public servants. They want to do. They want to be the good guys. It sounds really, really fucking hopeful, which is something that.
No, I don't think. I think it's good. I think that is healthy optimism, and I do believe that this is what frustrates me. The talent is there. There's absolutely no question that the political talent exists. And I've worked on campaign ads for Democratic candidates that didn't win or got close or whatever. The enthusiasm and the want to serve is there.
My dad, who's again conservative, has made some good. He and I talk about politics a lot, and we're able to say some things. He did make a point the other day that I think is very valid. When you're talking about young people running for office, he said that if you've starved people, like if you've made money not available to people for long enough, it doesn't matter to them anymore. And so you can be a young Democrat running for office that is not concerned with the millions of dollars. They don't give a shit. And so it's almost a monster of their own making.
Yeah, you're talking directly about Kat Abergazali there. She doesn't give a
shit.
Doesn't give a fuck. There you go. I've got two in just to catch up. So that's where I see the hope. That's where the hope is for me, and we've got a long way to go. That's the terrifying thing in some respects, that there's a hell of a long way to go. And to come back to your point, Charlotte, my concern is somewhat like yours, that how much damage will have been done by the time you're actually able to affect the change that you need to start rebuilding. Because don't forget, this is going back into geopolitics now, Robert. They've destroyed alliances around the world. People don't respect Trump; they fear him. Now that's
generations. It's going to take generations.
That's okay in some respects, in that he can do what he's doing, but it doesn't. Once they find a way, already, if you look at global trade, it's starting to rewire itself. It's starting to find its way around the obstacles that he's put in there. And I know we've not got back to AI, but one big thing that I've been looking into in minute detail is the Chinese approach to AI, and how because the American government restricted access to the NVIDIA chips that were the high-end AI chips, it's forced them to actually innovate themselves. And if you look at what what their sort of tech industry is doing now, they're working on the premise that how can you deliver the same benefits from AI but with less compute? The ability to deliver, and some of the stuff that they've come up with is just phenomenal. The fact that OpenAI and the large language models in the States it's all about power. The more compute you add, the more
it's being shown to be less and less efficient, right? That they're not developing better things. They're developing more power hungry things.
I have a theory about that. So they've
What a
asked for these
surprise.
billions of dollars. I think it is first of all, the government will give them the money, right? They'll subsidize it. They'll consider it a like an eminent domain situation. They'll get the land. They don't need it, right? They know they don't need it, but they will build. They will then subsidize the losses, and then they still walk away with a huge asset. And then the American taxpayer paid for it, and then we lost hundreds of thousands of acres in lands to corporate interest. That's what I think the deal is. I think that's the
which then can be repurposed for whatever,
absolutely
whatever sort of corporate scam is the next money earner. I think the thing is that going back to your point, Charlotte, about AI being inefficient, large language models being efficient, and that they're always on. It's like it has to keep analyzing the input over and over and over again, even though you're only asking a subset of what you asked in the first place, but it has to go through it again and again and again and again to keep giving you the answers. Well, the Chinese have worked out a system that mimics the human brain, is in that it only picks out and retraces the track on the information that you want in, which means that you only need 70% of the power and 10% of the compute. Now it's in its infancy at the moment, but I've got this vision that what's going to happen is American taxpayers are basically going to subsidize shitloads of energy, adding energy capacity to the grid, and then it's going to transpire that you never fucking needed it in the first place.
100%.
That's what's going to happen.
Am I right in remembering that the horrible big bill meant that there's no AI regulation in the US for the next decade?
They pulled that out.
Yeah,
so
they pulled it out.
They pulled that out. So the parliamentarian said that was law.
Even for them, that was a hard limit.
Yeah, but deregulation is if they can't deregulate it one way, they'll deregulate it another. That's why this eminent domain thing becomes, there's far more than one way to skin a cat. That's the way that.
And it's all being powered by fossil fuel, right? Like this isn't even.
God, yes. Well, yeah. That and methane, those methane turbines that, which are worse, I think. But it's a whole thing. They put him in Memphis. He did twice as many as supposed to. It's they're changing EPA regulations for him and stuff.
They've left a huge gap in the renewable energy sector as well, because globally, if you look at that is where the money is in the future.
Of course it is. It's like
that's and if you look at the Chinese energy mix, that what they're doing is slowly. Renewables are filling in the gap while they're working on this thorium nuclear proposition, which is going to change the landscape in terms of how energy's powered.
I think that Trump was successful for a group of people that were just hell-bent on crippling the Chinese economy against having any sort of economic footprint in Southeast Asia. They sure did light a fire in Xi. I mean, the BRICS, the Belt and Road, they have completely restructured their supply chain through Southeast
Absolutely.
Asia and Europe, and all the fears that you had about them becoming a stronger economic force,
Yeah.
you've done to yourself. I mean,
Well,
you've
that's right. And if the Chinese are able to bring the European Union into their sphere, that would be absolutely massive.
I
That would
think
be
they will. I think that'll be a no-brainer,
yeah,
especially with Trump and with Peter Navarro whispering tariffs in his ear every 10
yeah,
seconds. It's you're just pushing them. I
yeah,
think they have this idea that everybody's just going to come to the table, but I think everybody's just buying time until they can figure something out with
yeah,
something continental over there. I mean, it's
yeah.
You can't build a plan with someone who's unstable to that degree.
no, God, no.
No,
There's
His
no.
instability is just such a weakness.
yeah. And geopolitics is a very long game.
Yeah.
It's about decades planning ahead, and that's what the Chinese have been really, really good at. You know, if you look at the investment in GDP, and literally eradicating poverty in
Yeah.
in 30 years. I mean, if you consider the population size and how they managed to do that, it is nothing short of a miracle.
There's some concerns as far as like their authoritarian stance on some things,
Yeah, of course.
but economically, I think their mix of communism and socialism,
And capitalism.
Yeah,
and capitalism has certainly been
hybrid capitalism. Yeah,
it's a good model. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. I
no,
mean, there's but you know those are the things that it takes. And the United States sometimes gets people confuse capitalism with government, like that we are that's just an
correct.
economic strategy. That
Yeah,
um, you can have different forms of economic strategy inside of
yeah.
our democracy here, but I do think that China has shown immense ability to evolve in this landscape,
Yeah.
and I think they'll win.
I think what you've got to understand about the Chinese is from the day that Trump left office, and it looked like there was a possibility that he might get in again. They were planning from that point forward to
Absolutely.
mitigate exactly what he's thrown at them, because they had the experience of the last Trump administration with the tariffs and the farm stuff and all that kind of stuff. They knew exactly how to play the game this time. So they've approached that. I mean, Trump expected them to fold. The minute he threw all those tariffs at China, he thought he'd done them. And they just went, yeah, we'll raise you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the China's not buying our soybeans, right?
No.
So that and then they went and bought them from Argentina.
Argentina.
After we gave Argentina $20 billion.
Yeah.
I tell you, if you want to see a glimmer of hope, it is going to come from the agriculture community turning against Trump
Yeah.
very quickly, especially after that move. They needed $12 billion to save ag in the United States, and he sent $20 billion to Argentina, and they are going to let those farms suffer in the United States. And look, I'm not all for big government bailouts on a regular basis, but all of his policies and strategies are the ones that put it in the dirt. And then to send $20 billion to Argentina while they sell soybeans to fucking China
I know.
is was a that was a real slap in the face, I
Do you
think.
think
Yeah.
the farmers are seeing it that clearly? They are putting those things side by side. Like, is it that clear for them?
Yeah. Yes. One, suicide rates in Arkansas are very high in the ag community, right? It's doubled, I think, this year. I mean, it's a high suicide rate industry anyway. But you're talking about people losing generational farms
Yeah.
to this that can't save them.
Yeah. Bankruptcy rates are just through the ceiling, aren't they, in that sector?
And so that's different than it's ever been before. And the lawmakers aren't coming to talk to them. They're having
Trump doesn't
meetings.
care. He doesn't care about the farmers. Full stop.
Well,
They're
even
just
our own,
like, yeah,
even
they're
our
just
own
like,
senators, Tom
yeah.
Cotton is not coming.
No,
John Bozeman has not
no.
come to talk to them. Instead, you have candidates that are running against them. One of them is a farmer. She lost her farm because of this and decided to run for office.
Mm.
She goes to those things and talks to these people, and they are not. You're going to see a huge turnover in that, just in that industry. I think
Yeah.
of, and I don't think they're going to turn into lifelong Democrats by any means, but
No,
I think
no.
that they are. I do think that they will get those people out.
I think the issue here is he has bet the house on AI.
Yeah.
He's bet the house on AI. He's all in. And if that fails, he's got a big problem.
There's not really an if about it, is there? It's when, really, right?
It's not. It will. It's hard to explain this as somebody who deeply understands how AI works and the shortfalls of it, and that it's completely. You're never going to get that money back. The amount of money that's been sunk into that, it's just like you might as well have set fire to it, because what they've done is they've, like everything else, it reminds me of credit default swaps. When you go back to 2008, it's like this illusion of wellness, and there is no question that people can be convinced that AI is going to do what it's going to do because it's clever. People see ChatGPT and they see that they can send a letter to somebody, or they can do all the basic stuff. It does what you want it to do. But the question is, when you get into the weeds on it, it starts to misbehave. And that's where the problem's going to come from, because what corporate America is looking at is AI replacing the workforce.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, right? So that's the objective. But yet the latest in-depth tests that are being done, even at a basic level of giving AI a test of saying, this is a hairdressing business, and they set out a whole scenario of how you do credit control, how you do all the different elements that makes a business work. And the fucking AI's calling the FBI to get a debt settled.
The thing about AI, it's a computer. You have to you give it parameters and it operates inside of it. It doesn't have it can't have it doesn't have what's the word I'm looking for?
Doesn't have
there's no nuance
sentience.
to its thought process. Like, it's not going to make a clever decision based on something it's learned, or it's just, it follows a set of rules. And you're going to have calling the FBI for debt. I think that it's a fun tool for people to use.
Yeah,
like, I think it
exactly.
does some things
correct.
really. There's things it does really well, but I don't think it's ever going to replace the workforce.
No,
because if
But
that's
what
your
they've been
ROI,
told. That's what corporate America's been told.
Also, if you drive up unemployment,
oh, don't go down that.
People who had jobs now don't have jobs. What's the end game of that?
Universal income, of course.
Well, no, because they're not even going to do that, are they? I find it frustrating that they're trying to give AI the fun jobs, the fun part of human life, while the rest of us have to just clean toilets.
Do you know the worst problem, like the biggest problem we have, is that you have a lot of top line economists that are only looking at how do we make they know how to drive income to the bottom line. Like, they don't understand anything else. All they know is that if we do X, Y, and Z, it drives profit and revenue.
Correct.
And if you put those people in charge of a government, right?
Correct.
They have
Which
no
is exactly
fucking
what you're
clue.
doing.
It
how to
goes
do
back to your
anything.
beginning point. They game the system. They're not governing.
And their idea of ROI is, if we invest all this money into AI, and our ROI is going to be in labor, like, we're going to be able to save this money in labor. They're not fucking thinking about what happens to you and
Absolutely
me.
not.
They don't give a shit. They are thinking about what is going to be our return on the investment we put into AI in saved labor dollars.
Correct.
That's it.
That's it. And I don't think you can get that kind of return with the maturity of the technology as it is. You know, you can get it to pass the bar exam or the medical board exams, because it's gathering knowledge that every student gathers in order to pass those exams. It's not making a judgment call on a patient, because
the short-sighted part of it is, if all these people are talking about wanting to drop labor, AI doesn't buy a house, it doesn't buy groceries or any
Doesn't
of
pay
that shit.
taxes.
So there's no more commerce being that's the problem with top line economists, people that do not understand top to bottom economics, is that they are going to they ruin themselves. And
yeah,
they've learned how to strip mine companies, and that's all they're concerned about, is how do you pull the how do you juice this fucking lemon for everything,
and
and
that's
then
what
throw away the rind.
that's what Trump's doing. You know, he's
Yeah,
strip mining
yeah.
the American people, and he's shifting that wealth from the bottom and the middle to the top. They're just scooping it up and sending it just one way.
And
And
instead of having,
I'm afraid that's where the French Revolution came from.
yeah, it's so odd that you have this many people that are so sector concerned. You have a bunch of people that understand just their one little area, and they're just trying to kill it for themselves, instead of nobody in this administration is looking at a big picture. Not one fucking one, like not one single person is looking at a big picture. And that's the terrifying part. Sorry, didn't mean to end it on a pessimistic note. But
No, that's fine. Charlotte, you're
Sorry.
driving the bus.
Yeah, there was an animal noise outside, and I'm a bit scared. Right, I'm going to have to go to bed soon because it's well past my bedtime.
No,
so we
that's
need
fine.
a final question, which I think I wrote down was: if people have been listening to this and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, can we give them a thing to do that will help them feel better about this? Whether it's an action or an activity, what can people do?
I think the secret, Charlotte, is always to stay informed. And I know that might sound a very broad brush, but it's this thing about you know, it's like when you find a good plumber, you want to put that plumber's name in your book. And I know that these analogies are very Martin. But it's this thing about finding sources for information and making sure that you've got access to the facts and not the narrative, because what my fear is that it's becoming narrower and narrower. The tram lines in which the facts exist become more and more difficult to locate, and that for me is my biggest worry. That you know, going back to what Sora's doing in AI, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. I'll guarantee you that by the time we get to the 2026 elections, nobody will know who's saying what. And that should terrify everybody, because you can get OpenAI towing the line and Claude. Do you think Musk is going to toe the line with Grok? Because he's not. He's going to provide the tools that allow them to distort the narrative. And I don't know what we, as people telling the truth, can do to fight that. Robert might. Am I?
I think that there's a lot to unpack, as far as I think you'll probably see a rise because of what's available with AI. In I think once people are, I think once if you bottleneck truth to that extent, right, where it's the expectation is truly that you can't really trust anything, I think people will start seeking out things like Reuters and and places that will fact check. I think people are going to have to start doing that. So that may be a positive there. Is that there may be so much of a flood of false information that people are going to have to seek out the truth. They won't just expect that it's coming to them.
You've
So
made
maybe
my
that's a
day today,
positive.
Robert, because you can find a positive from absolutely any shit that I've thrown at you today.
It's a rare talent.
Yeah, I'm
I
so
live in the
impressed.
United States, Martin. Like we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
fucking good at it. If I were to tell anybody anything, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I tell everybody to find a community. Like you need to find like-minded people,
Yeah.
because if you feel like you're by yourself, you will tell yourself you're by yourself. And so whatever it takes, whether it's people online, like joining a book club like Charlotte does,
Mhm.
or whatever it takes, go find some people that kind of feel the same way you do. There's probably a Democratic Party group somewhere, or even if it's not Democrat, just some sort of
Yeah,
group.
yeah.
Pen pals of mine have recommended the Quakers.
The
Quaker
Quakers are
meetings, a
fantastic.
way
The
of
Quakers are
finding
the
people.
best. If you've got
Right.
some Quakers around you, go get
Right.
with those guys. And then also balance yourself. You still have to go do the things that make you happy. If you can devote yourself 24 hours a day to this stuff and and do it, and you'll drive yourself nuts. You'll
Yeah,
burn yourself out.
absolutely.
And so spend your time, stay informed, fight the good fight, all that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, balance and community are the things that are going to keep you sane.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's what I
Charlotte,
found with the Help Me Leave stuff. Is it's felt really good to do a thing, and obviously the thing isn't solving the whole problem, because I, as a single person, can't solve the whole problem. But if everybody does one thing, whether that's growing a community garden, or working in your local food pantry, or finding a Quaker meeting where you can go and meet other people who are doing stuff. I've got people that I talk to who are writing postcard campaigns, to send out to people to remind them to vote. I know a guy who's set up a multi-faith church so that people in his local community to get together and be connected. There are literally thousands of ways to resist, and not all of them involve standing in a street or putting yourself
absolutely.
physically in harm, and I think at risk of harm. And I think that for me, like, finding things I can do has helped me a lot with some of the stress I was feeling. I'm still quite stressed, but it
Yeah,
has.
yeah. Well, I just want to say a massive thank you, Charlotte, actually, because when you came to me with this idea of us doing this 3-way conversation, I thought, might be a challenge, but my God,
You two could both talk the hind legs off a donkey, so I have no worries.
I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed
It's been
it.
really good. I agreed. I think we should do it again.
Yeah, and it's like there's so
We
much.
currently
stuff
have
to be
1,000 people watching this on TikTok, which I think is quite a good number.
We have
How many?
1,000 people
On TikTok, yeah, and then
No
I don't know
shit.
how many on Instagram or Substack.
Wow.
but
How'd we do that?
Oh, I don't know.
Charlotte.
Every girl.
It's anti-Charlotte.
I don't even think I'm logged in. I don't think people know that I'm even on here.
No, exactly. It's just the power of the presence of the three of us together. So there we go.
So I think we should. I think it could be a really good regular thing that we could work together, because this is totally ad lib tonight. We didn't even know how to work the technology. So
imagine if we'd prepared.
Exactly, and I think that there's stuff that we can do. There's content that I can spin up on screen and all that kind of stuff that we can use to illustrate points. And I think it could be quite a winning combination.
Yeah. Well, next time I'll try and get comments working, because it's obviously nice to be able to interact with people. But thank you so much for your time, both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.
Okay. Chat soon.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.